All right, welcome back to the second half of my presentation on behavioral economics. Now, moving on, let me explain another really interesting and really puzzling psychological phenomenon that is also related to loss aversion. It's known as the endowment effect. The word endowment here means possession or ownership of something. The idea is that when you own something, you may grow attached to it, and then you value it more than you should. Well, here, I guess I should put quote unquote quotation marks on should, because more than you should, as if you are a rational being. One of the most famous experiments on the endowment effect is the coffee mug experiment. So here's how it worked. The participants were randomly assigned into two groups. Everyone in the first group were given a coffee mug to start with. They'll say something like, okay, thank you, Mr. So-and-so. Thank you for participating in our research. As a small token of appreciation, please take this coffee mug. This establishes a sense of ownership of the mug, so you feel endowed with the mug to begin with. Subjects in the other group did not receive a mug. And then those with a mug were asked, for how much would you sell it? Those without a mug were asked, how much would you pay to buy one of these mugs? Let's think about this. If everyone is indeed rational, we should expect the average asking price and the average bidding price to be roughly the same, because economically speaking, the two groups are both asked to evaluate the objective value of a mug, whether they own it or not. But what researchers actually found was surprising. The sellers asked for an average of $7.12. I assume this is US dollars. And the buyers offered an average of only $2.87. So there's a huge difference by a factor of almost 3. How do we explain this? This can only be explained by the hypothesis that as soon as you own something, you begin to value it more than when you didn't own it. I think this experiment is beautifully designed because it found a way to not only illustrate the endowment effect, but also it found a way to quantify this effect. In fact, when the same experiment was replicated with different groups of people, that same result remained relatively consistent. The same result here means that there's a multiplier of 2 or 2.5 or sometimes even 3 between the two average values. So people perceive the value of something quite differently depending on whether they own it or not. This outcome is also a reflection of loss aversion, because those who already have a mug think that they are asked to name a price that would compensate for their loss. So they think that they have a big loss. But those without a mug think that they are naming a price just to reflect the objective value of the mug, and therefore there's this huge difference. There are many ways for companies to tap into this endowment effect and make more money. For example, many products or services offer a free trial period. I'm thinking of Netflix. So with Netflix, you can enjoy it for a month at no cost. And then if you don't cancel it by the end of the month, you begin to pay a subscription fee of something like, I think, $12 per month. So in essence, what this free trial month does is that it creates the perception that you own it. Psychologically, even when you don't enjoy watching the programs that much, you will still have a difficult time canceling that subscription because of the endowment effect, because you can easily overvalue these programs, not because you enjoy them, but because you think you owned them. Moving on to the next behavioral insights, I want to talk about something called present bias. Present bias is the tendency to overvalue immediate rewards at the expense of your long-term intentions. This is a trait very common among us, and it can have big implications. For example, let's say you made a New Year resolution to go to the gym and lose some weight, but then your action just falls short. Or again, here, the you who made the resolution is rational, but the you who fails to take action is irrational. Present bias, just like loss aversion, is quite prevalent among all of us, and neoclassical economics falls short when it comes to explaining why this occurs. Let's do a thought experiment to explain what I mean here. The thought experiment is as follows. I will give you $1,000 and also give you the option to receive the $1,000 in 2 different installments. You can receive a portion of it today. I'll take T0 for today. And you can take the remaining amount in a year at an interest rate of 5%. Now, how would you split the money? I invite you, including our interpreters, to take a mental note of your answer right now. With $1,000, how do you split it between now and a year from now? Okay, now let's do the same experiment again. $1,000, but now I'm going to ask you to choose to receive part of it 1 year from now with no interest, and the remaining amount 2 years from now at an interest rate of 5%. How would you now divide your money? All right, if you have taken down your answers, let's think about what this is all about. If you are a perfectly rational person, as assumed by neoclassical economists, your choice between these 2 scenarios should be identical. Because the 2 problems are identical in the sense that they both involve the decision to split an amount of money between 2 points in time that are 1 year apart. We can note them as T0 and T1 in the first scenario and T1 and T2 in the second scenario. Mathematically, this is exactly the same problem. So essentially, there should be no difference in your decision between the 2 scenarios. However, what we found in empirical studies is that the amount people allocate to T0 in the first scenario is consistently more than the amount people allocate to T1 in the second scenario. My guess is that for the first scenario, a lot of you would rather receive all of the money or most of the money today rather than wait until next year. But in the second scenario, your framing of the problem is totally different because you'll think, well, I'll have to wait regardless. And if I wait 1 more year, I'll get 5% extra. That's not a bad rate. So I'd rather save most, if not all, of my money for T2 and get the 5% extra. See, this can only be explained by what we call present bias. Again, the idea is that we value instant gratification so much that whenever we have the option to consume something right now, we begin to think irrationally. Hence the name present bias. Present as in live in the present. And I think this theory of present bias can actually explain a lot of what we do that departs from, again, the rationality assumption of economics. We overspend, we procrastinate, you name it. There are many habits in our behavior that are just not rational. Well, let me give you an example of how companies can profit from the present bias of their consumers. Some behavioral economists looked into the membership fee of a gym, or perhaps many gyms in the Boston area. So here's the typical payment schedule. If you pay per visit to a gym, you pay $10 each time. If you get a monthly membership, you'll pay $85 and it's renewed automatically. This means that you'll have to go to the gym 9 times or more than 9 times to break even. If you get a yearly membership, it's around $850 and it's renewed manually. With a monthly pass, do you break even? Will people end up going to the gym more than 9 times? It turns out that the vast majority who bought a monthly or yearly pass don't break even, because they think they'll use the gym enough times, but it's their wishful thinking usually, and the culprit is present bias. Now I want to ask you, between the monthly members and the yearly members, who's even worse off? The monthly members or the yearly members? Who suffered present bias even more? It turns out that it's the monthly members, because their membership is renewed automatically unless they cancel it. It turns out that, and this may or may not surprise you, it turns out that many people are so lazy that they don't even make the trip, or they don't even make the call to cancel their membership after they have stopped using the gym. So they still end up paying $85 a month for a much longer period of time. So one interesting thing about present bias is that people are generally aware of it, and people often seek help. For example, in this example, those who bought a monthly or yearly gym membership are in some way trying to force themselves to go to the gym, right? You put the money down at the beginning, and then you think you'll have enough motivation to go. But what happens is that people often underestimate how powerful present bias is. In other words, they know they have this problem, but they don't realize how big the problem is. And there are others who turn to external mechanisms to help them conquer present bias. I don't know if you have friends who wear either a Fitbit or some sort of mobile app on their phone that allows them to broadcast daily how many miles they ran or how many steps they took. They post it on Facebook or what have you. And these are actually social mechanisms. And I think by announcing their actions publicly, they are hoping that their friends would hold them accountable in terms of walking or in terms of doing exercise. And this brings me to the application of behavioral economics. In this last part, I want to show you one very successful case where behavioral economics was used to tackle a major social problem today, which is saving for retirement. Now, in a place like the United States, and I suspect many other parts of the developed economy, working people who have benefits and have a salary are not saving enough for their retirement. This is a common problem. It's been understood for years, but little has been done about it. Until two behavioral economists, Richard Thaler, who won the Nobel Prize for Economics, I mentioned earlier, and another one called Shlomo Benartzi, designed this Save More Tomorrow program to help employees increase their savings for retirement. So the design of this program taps into many of the behavioral economics insights that we've talked about today. First of all, present bias. Present bias plays a big part in causing this problem of insufficient pension savings. The rational you wants to save, but when your paychecks arrive, the temptation of instant gratification is just irresistible, and you end up spending too much and saving too little, right? The way these two behavioral economists solved this problem is by asking people to fill out a form today, but on this form, they don't decide how much to save today. They decide on how much to save in the future, and it'll be automatically executed. Remember, we found that when you think into the future, not between T0 and T1, but when you think between T1 and T2, you become more removed from that decision. And that's when you can think a lot more rationally to serve your long-term good. So present bias. And then also loss aversion was taken into account. Imagine if I were to tell you that your take-home pay is not increasing, but somehow I'm asking you to save more. What does that mean? That means you will perceive saving as leading to less less take-home pay. So you frame it as a loss. To tackle this problem, the way this program works is that workers will, you will put a higher amount into your 401k account, which is, I think, the same thing as, or a similar thing as RRSP in Canada, Registered Retirement Savings Account. So anyway, in the US, it's called 401k. You won't begin to put a higher amount into your 401k until you get your next pay raise. And this means that only part of the increase in your salary will go into savings. This is a smart way to avoid the potential resentment that people have for saving for a saving plan because they have loss aversion. The third important feature of this program is that it's an opt-out system as opposed to opt-in system. Eligible workers would automatically get enrolled in the program unless they fill out a form and opt out. This is really a smart way to use the inertia in people's behavior. Nobody likes filling out forms. So it uses inertia to get more people to join the program. And it worked wonders. Starting in 1998, Benartzi and Thaler rolled out this program with blue-collar workers in the Midwest of the United States. The result is that 78% of the employees opted to join the program because the default choice was to join, so only 22% opted out. And over the next 40 months, this program helped participating employees to increase their saving from an average of 3% of their income to an average of 14% of the income. That chart is actually roughly shown on the cover of this book. It's significant because if you know something about retirement planning, you would know that there's a huge difference between having saved 3% of your income and having saved 14% of what you made in terms of giving people the ability to retire comfortably and in terms of improving their life standard that they're able to afford in retirement. So here you probably agree with me that it's a really simple design, but it's incredibly powerful. It tackles the problem from a fundamentally different angle than neoclassical economics would. The conventional view about retirement saving is that in order to incentivize people to save more, you have to offer something. You have to offer something tangible by giving more government subsidy or by offering higher interest rate or higher return on their pension saving to get people to save more. But with behavioral economics, since the cost to implement this plan is very low for the employer or for the government, today about 60% of large companies in the US have put in place some sort of employee benefit plans that resemble this one. Benartzi, one of the co-authors or one of the economists behind this plan, wrote this book, Save More Tomorrow, to explain how the program works and, in a sense, why the program works. He also, by the way, he also gave a TED talk as well. If you just search Save More Tomorrow, you'll be able to watch him explain how this program worked. So again, this is a convincing case where we see how powerful behavioral economics and behavioral finance can be if it's used right. That also concludes my presentation today. Thank you for listening, and thank you to our interpreters who worked hard in the booths. Thank you.